Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and start our 2:30 talk. I would like to introduce Scott Gregory. Mr. Gregory currently serves as a GIS manager for Asheville, North Carolina office of Wildlands Engineering. He uses GIS spatial analyst and modeling to provide spatial decision support solutions for a wide variety of water resources, ecological restoration, and environmental planning projects. He specializes in mapping, mobile, and web-based geospatial applications and data visualization. Mr. Gregory's experience includes stream design, watershed and stream geomorphic assessments, stormwater infrastructure inventories, surveying and GPS, and construction management. Let's welcome Scott Gregory. He's going to be talking about leveraging AGOL for stream and wetland mitigation construction management projects.
Thank you. Welcome, everyone. It's funny, Sean, who just presented before me, we're working on a watershed project, so it's interesting to finally meet someone in person after Teams calls. But yeah, so I am an environmental scientist and GIS manager for Wildlands out of our Asheville office. So today I'm going to be talking about how we use AGOL to leverage, leveraging AGOL to help manage our construction projects for stream and wetland mitigation. Quick confession though, all the slides of this this presentation will be screenshots from Web App Builder. And we've been kicking the can long enough, so this is the year that we are migrating, and that's currently in progress, but none of that made it to this, so spoiler. So I'm going to start off with going into a little bit of background to provide context of the kind of construction we do, so you all get a better understanding of the workflow and then how we configure it and some of the functions. And then some use cases that we have found to be helpful, and then if there's any questions, we can kind of go from there. So at Wildlands Engineering, we do these four things. Primarily the second one, mitigation solutions, stream and wetland and habitat mitigation is our bread and butter. We have 6 main offices spanning North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, and Tennessee. And currently have over 100 mitigation projects that are active in some form or phase. 14 of those, I'm going to attempt to use 14 of those are in construction, and you can see everything that bubbles up to that. So those are everything prior to construction that moves up into construction. So it's been a conveyor belt, and we're continuing to grow. And with those construction projects comes appointing new people to oversee that construction, obviously qualified people, getting them trained up. And that has been challenging because for a while, standards for us managing construction projects was kind of all over the place. If anyone has done construction management of any kind, you know it's a wild animal and it's hard to tame. And it's hard to do things consistently sometimes. And before I kind of go into things, if you're unfamiliar with mitigation, with stream and wetland mitigation, we simply offset impacts from roadway or other developments from one watershed to, or from somewhere in a watershed to somewhere else that get quantified. And so this is just a kind of a night and day example of a creek in Charlotte at Reedy Creek Park that we provide stream and wetland mitigation on. So the left is kind of a degraded stream, limited habitat value, and then on the right, that's the restored condition. And these projects often include wetlands, as you see here, lots of earthwork and grading, lots of contractors, fencing contractors, vegetation, planting contractors. It also always incorporates a buffer component, vegetative buffer, to help filter nutrients and provide flood storage. So there's a lot of moving pieces and parts. And these projects these mitigation projects, a single one spans 7 to 10 years, depending on where the project is and when it was started. And and so from the time that a plan gets awarded to construction, and then there's several years of monitoring to monitor success, it's a long period of time. And in those 3 phases, in our company, it incorporates almost every single one of our teams. And so it's imperative that at each level that information gets passed on, because it's often that someone else will get rotated in that's newer, or another office will help out on a project depending on scheduling and workload. And so so keeping everything centralized is pretty critical. And we currently don't do the best at that, but this is kind of an attempt to kind of curb that behavior. So when I first started with construction management years ago, and my feet was held to the fire, I was often given sticky notes stuck to tattered plan sets that were that had chicken scratch on it. Sometimes there was 2 plan sets because someone else that I work with had notes on theirs, and I had to put them together. Getting onto the site with giant plan sets and orienting myself was difficult. I am colorblind, so CAD lines on colors and discerning one layer from another was difficult for me. You add, some of the equipment, and there's other equipment too, to check grades and stuff like that. It could look a little bit like a circus act and be frustrating, with weather and whatnot. So I realized there had to be another way, and we were already. This is like a screenshot of kind of our current prototype of our construction viewer app and web app builder, but we were already using field maps a lot, collecting existing condition data, and then consuming that data in lightweight apps, or just in a web map, and people just making decisions from that. So it wasn't really that big of a heavy lift or stretch to go from that and to here and to accommodate this workflow. But construction, there's a lot of data, there's a lot of decisions. At the time, I still don't consider myself very seasoned at construction management. I'm kind of like in between middle to seasoned, but it did help for me to get with some folks instead of doing this by myself to kind of help, develop some schemas that made sense, and that wasn't overly complicated. And as we all know, like ArcGIS Online, I mean, we do have, we use that platform, but we all know that, it has the ability to attach photos, videos, and audio for notes to self out in the field, like when you get done talking to a foreman or something can be helpful. But the date and timestamp, the username, the fact that when it's often 2 people, sometimes 3 will manage a construction project out of our office, and sometimes out of 2 offices. And so knowing who did what and when is really helpful. And then, within the web app, kind of using the time slider for certain things, or the ability to search by station. For stream design, it's like road design, so it's like linear footage for stationing. So everything's tied to that. So it is helpful to be able to navigate with that. And so, this is not something overly complicated. It's your typical workflow of, inspector in the field, collecting data, making inspections, plopping points down. That goes to a web map, and then it gets consumed in a web application. The cool thing here, and this was the unintended result, though, is that oftentimes that last column of the web application is an internal web app builder application for us, just so we can see like a little dashboard, an infographic that has inspection issues that are outstanding, current status, linear footage installed of this type of practice. But over the years, and I'll talk about this a little bit later, there have been projects where we've been able to just share out a different view, like maybe a more brighter, sunny view that we don't want the client to see all the nasty inspection stuff, or the public. A lot of times there's a public-facing component with a high-profile project, and the ability to just from that one web map just create those on the fly so quickly to serve so many purposes has been so big, and it continues to be big. And like I said, it was kind of an unintended result, but it's really paying dividends for us. So yeah, like I said, sometimes it's just one web app that we have to serve our needs. Sometimes the clients do want the ability to see stuff in real time. Contractors more and more are wanting that ability, especially because they can keep up with our real-time punch lists and action items. And then, like I said, there are some projects where there is a PR component, and that definitely needs extra consideration and planning, so you don't report or show anything that is going to raise concern. But all these are just can be springboarded from that one web map. And so the ideal project type for us that fits well within this workflow is the majority of our projects, which are medium to large scale. Small projects, which we do have a lot of those, but where plan sets are kind of coarse and stuff's designed on the fly in the field, and it's only a week long, 2 weeks long. Because there's a little bit of setup involved with one of these, with CAD data coming in and stuff, it's not really conducive for small projects. But all these other points here, when projects involve multiple stakeholders and stuff like that, it's really ideal, and it's catching on like a wildfire at Wildlands, which is good to see. And so, just like any other web map, this involves really the ingredients of reference layers and operational layers. And the reference layers for this is your typical base mapping layers that you navigate on from the design and that help you make decisions. The operational layers are your editable inspection layers. And so the reference layers themselves, like 95% is from CAD, from Civil 3D. That is our design platform. And so it'll take the base mapping, the existing and the proposed surface model in there. It'll take the specs, some information from the specs, and then it's rounded out a little bit with existing condition and proposed condition GIS data that was approved in the mitigation plan. We put all that in the hopper, really into Pro, and we're in the process of really trying to automate that and get standards, since this is catching on a lot at Wildlands, so we don't have to manually do all this. So that's kind of working with CAD folks to, get schemas set on their end and on ours, so it can be more streamlined. But publish this to AGOL. And so that's reference layers. The other ingredients, the operational layers, this is simply a template. This is our current template that we kind of use now. It's ever evolving as more and more people use this, and I always welcome comments and tell people that this is not set in stone. But it's 3 categories. One is to inspect in-stream structures. So, there's channel grading, and then there's woody and rocky structures involved, like natural channel design, to hold elevation in streams and to provide habitat. So we inspect all those, and there is specs and details for those structures, so they have to be built to spec, almost like a house has to be built a certain way. And so we have to look at those and tell a contractor to come back if it's not right, and so we can code it as such if need be. Or sometimes we omit structures. Sometimes there's constraints in the field, like a big chunk of bedrock that just showed up that we didn't account for, and we skip a structure, and then there's a little bit of a domino effect, and we add new structures that weren't originally planned. So we track all that. And then there's the floodplain grade checks. That's everything outside of the top of bank and beyond. That's good because, or that's crucial because these stream designs often take advantage of restoring flood access. So there's less stress on the channel. The channels are more stable. There's flood storage in the floodplain, and it absorbs nutrients out there for water quality benefit. The other thing is, when it's a wetland restoration component, or we're getting mitigation from wetlands, those grades have to be pretty spot on, so the hydrology, we get the hydrology right, because it could be really tricky. So that's where those come in. And then the last 3, are a point line polygon representation, depending on what fits the bill of the issue that you see. It's everything else, basically, all the other issues, especially erosion sediment control issues, which are ongoing, and some other lingering issues that come about. So, and so in the web app builder, there we simply have like, in the web app builder part is more for back-end reporting. And so this right here shows just counts of all that, and you can generate punch lists from this that we can print out, or the contractor can print out. This is kind of a zoom in that shows some of that. You kind of see this one's a little bit of a mess, but you see some colored wetland polygons. You see some X's, some dark X's with circles where the contractor had to come back and remove like a half a foot of fill to get the wetland hydrology right. And so there's a lot of potential uses. I've already mentioned some of these. I'll kind of go into some of this. So project status can simply be looking at where the blue and white points, inspection points are, and where they're not, construction hasn't happened. And you can see the status of those. Or on an older project for Reedy Creek in Charlotte, the one that I had some before and after pictures to, they wanted percent complete and project length in real time. So we had that set up so in real time it would actually report this on the dashboard. And then an overall project status of what was built compared to the proposed, right there is like what hasn't been built yet, and then some of the other categories. And then you can generate quantity estimates to reconcile invoices every month. You know, every month we get the invoice from a contractor. And if we keep track of these, it's simply just comparing, and it makes it so much easier. A lot of people don't use this yet as they're getting to know this app, but it's just simply extra time in the field or back in the office of logging some of that, and it shows up. This punch list is simply just the attribute table widget, and then you can filter by date or by type, and then there's the issue ID here. Like I said, there's a public relations component sometimes for this, and in the case with that Reedy Creek Charlotte project, they wanted the ability to have a QR code at kiosks, at trailheads, during construction to show status, and then after to show an existing conditions and proposed conditions story map. A lot of times we set these up, and I'm like, no one's going to look at this. There was so many hits on this. I mean, it could have been me checking on how many hits are on it, because it records that, but I don't know, because I did check it a lot. But lastly, monitoring, like I said, that happens for several years after construction to really track success before credits get released. And so sometimes it's as simple as taking our construction app and kind of wrapping it in like an attachment viewer. This was not a mitigation project. This is in Hendersonville, but it was 13 sites that were simultaneously being constructed of stream bank stabilization, and the state wanted us to do 2 years of visual monitoring, which is for these projects is not typical, but anyways, rather than, it's a lot of sites, long projects, rather than create photo logs, we negotiated with them to do it this way. And we still had to go out and take the photos, but everything was managed in here. We didn't have to create photo logs and export and a PDF and like send it and all that. And so, I don't know, it's just another use. And like I said, our construction crews or monitoring crews can still take our construction maps and move forward with them. So I think that's about it. Questions? Yes.
So, just to specify, when you guys were using like publishing workflows, are you using enterprise, using hosted?
Yeah, hosted feature. Yeah, just RTS online. Yep.
What's the credit usage looking like on that?
It's not bad. We don't. So yeah, it's really just file size for photos, and our photos, because these schemas are not huge. There are some related tables with the inspections, so you can do repeated visits on inspections. But you know, the the cryptic language, and a lot of people do talk to text, you know. That's another really cool thing. I always forget about that, but rather than fat fingering, you know, a bunch of stuff, which talk to text isn't perfect either, but it could really speed things up. But like that text doesn't take up a lot of space. It's the photos. And if accidentally, I don't know, we set that, we don't set that, you know, lower, that can become bloated if it's a long project. I mean, that's the thing. I'm kind of guilty for taking lots of photos just because it has come in handy for recourse of certain things with the contractor. And so, whereas other people are like, man, I don't want to junk this thing up. And what a lot of times they don't realize is you could just filter a lot of that stuff out. So to answer your question, it's really, I mean, I don't know the exact amount, but it seems like it's peanuts, really. Especially since there's like no geoprocessing kind of going on, so. Yeah. Yep. Yeah, yeah. No, we do that. Yep. Yeah, on the CAD side. Yep. Yeah, and I would have to put you in touch with our IT guy at Wildlands is the CAD guru too. Whereas CAD, I used to be fairly dangerous with it, but now I don't know a whole lot. One of my coworkers, Andy's here, and he may be able to help you. But I do know for a fact we do take a proposed surface, and it is modeled for those drops, and then that model is what we bring into ArcGIS Online, so we can, you know, check those in the field. And then that same model is what these days more than ever our contractors, you know, that are doing the earthwork, they upload those models. Yep. Yeah, and you work with DOT or for DOT? Yeah. Okay. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, have you already published your web map for clients, or is it based off request?
Like this type?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The web map.
Yep. Yeah. And so what? If it's going to be for a client or public facing, it's usually wrapped in an app, but yes, when they request it, and then also I work with the project manager, our project manager, to kind of discern like what the client wants to see. Just because, like I said, some of that has just a bunch of like, you know, I mean, there's issues all the time, you know, really bad issues sometimes, some unforeseen, but so it's like you got to determine what you want them to see, what not, and it's not really lying. It's just really I don't consider it that, but it's really just sharing out what they need to see, and the public especially is another one. But yes, that's happening more and more, and that's kind of what I think motivated me to do this presentation, is the fact that just from that one web map, really for our selfish needs, like you can share out those views and tailor them to what other people need to see, and more people are asking for that stuff without me saying that we have that capability.
Right. And
So.
can you download data from it? Like, so we're DOT and we buy credits, and we want to be able to specialize our credit purchases. And so could we go into your site and like capture the location of your bank sites?
Yes, depending on how we made that publicly available, like sometimes we do a partner collaboration between two AGOL accounts or distributed between Enterprise and ArcGIS Online. Sometimes we just put it up publicly if there's nothing, you know, sensitive in there or no, you know, data concerns. But it would depend on the permissions. But yeah, sometimes that is, especially if it's with a client, we do try to make that available. Yeah. No, no, you're right. I didn't specify. I did real quick in a little graphic. It is field maps. Yeah, survey 1 through 3 does come to mind, and kind of like what you said in your presentation. The cool thing about this is, I mean, where Survey 123 falls short, I think, in this is the map-centric component, and there's so much going on the site that, and it probably boils down to more of the fact that the engineers and some of the scientists I work with that aren't as GIS savvy, like, they want to see a map. If they see like a bunch of forms for that, they're probably just like, what's going on? And then the locking of the Survey 123, I gotta make a note of that, yeah, for what you said, yeah. But yeah, it's field maps, yeah.
One of the frustrations around field maps is the size of the, like what they're filling in. Sometimes they get frustrated.
No, you're exactly right. Yeah, hopefully that. To date, we haven't done a whole lot of smart forms. Really, when you click on any of these inspection points to populate a new one or to edit, it's typically just your default. I mean, I do make sure the pop-up does not contain unnecessary information and that the ordering's correct, but we could stand to kind of spiff it up a little bit. But no, you're right. That is, I think that's going to be, we're getting more comments as more and more wildlands folks are using this, so. Yeah.
I don't know if you were attempting it, but where you do that link where it's like it gives you a short pop-up. They click on some feature or something, and then they can say, "Oh, I want to open this over."
Yes. So yeah. Our stream. So yeah, which I'm sorry, I'm not repeating the questions, but what Sean was saying is like you can kind of couple up Survey 123 with field maps by having a pop-up in field maps show up. And you click on the link, a URL in the pop-up of feature, and then Survey 123 opens up, fill out your survey, submit, and it goes back to field maps. Yeah, we have our stream for jurisdictional resources when we delineate streams and wetlands. We do that because it's a little bit more of a state mandated protocol like that we have to follow, and so we kind of mirrored that instead of paper forms. But so that is an option that we should explore for this. So, yeah. Any other questions?
So, how much of a bottleneck are you hitting going from Civil 3D CAD files into ArcGIS?
Andy in the audience, he's been doing them lately. I mean, I'd say for one project. So the question was how much time or cleanup is there from CAD going into the geodatabase? Oh, we've got the
Can you
reach
hear me?
out.
Hear me all right?
Yeah.
Depending on the size of the project. But,
I'd say a day or
like.
Okay, so it's not just me.
no, and this is coming from like when I was speaking to the other gentleman from DOT. I was like our IT CAD guy. Like is pretty meticulous where his drawing, everyone uses the same like schema in CAD, and yeah.
What takes the most time in cleaning up and preparing the CAD data to format and publish into an AGOL web map is just getting the data correctly formatted from the designer and tracking it down. But then if everything's set up, we're working on automating that whole process.
Yeah, with that funnel picture, that's what I was saying, because that is, as the assembly line's pushing more of these our way, and it's falling on Andy and me really at this point, that is the bottleneck that you're talking. And like, as you know, like polygons, like polygon features that we want to represent as polygons from CAD and GIS, a lot of times some of those might not show up because they weren't closed. And so we have to scrutinize the polyline layer too. But then if the designer who gave us this just has missed features, because a lot of the features on the base mapping that we bring in are just shapes and they're not part of the model. But like if they miss those, and that's not our job. So we have a lot of work to do to get with the CAD folks as this ramps up to like, eliminate the bottleneck and to kind of, get a process going. That could be my next presentation. So, yeah.
Well, thank you all. We're out of time.
Yeah.
Right now is the break in exhibitors in the exhibit hall.
Thanks, everyone.